If you could think of like some core ethics, core ideas that are central to who you are and how you live your life and what's most important to you, do you have any sense of what those might be or what you might say?
I do. The first thing I would say would be always to thine own self be true.
And this idea, to thine own self be true, did this get passed down from your parents, or how did it show up in your life?
I think it was just a result of experiencing life and sort of seeing how things are supposed to go. They didn't really give me an explicit philosophy, except, of course, for if you're Black, you have to work twice as hard to get half as much. But I guess just living my own life, it seemed to work better if you do what you feel you should do and not be swayed by what other people think you should.
Yeah, this sounds like another important piece of wisdom and experience there too. Being Black, you have to work twice as hard to get half as much.
Yes.
Oof. Yeah, that cut through. I'm curious. So would you say then, when you said, to thine own self be true, is that one way to sort of counteract or begin to counteract? Can I call it racism? Like, is that what we're talking about when we say if you're Black, you have to work twice as hard to get half as much? Racism often functions in ways that are invisible and unspoken. I have found that asking questions about people's experiences with racism has the potential to lead to important and foundational stories. I think it also begins to position this environment as one where we can talk about topics like racism, which is a topic many Black and brown folks have been taught we're not supposed to talk about, especially in professionalized settings. Well, would it be helpful? I'm wondering, as a Black woman, if that has resonated in your experience at all.
Oh, it has, and it makes me get in trouble a lot.
Is it okay if we get in trouble here?
Sure.
Or should we not get in trouble? That's okay. So we agree on that. Okay, good.
Well, there was a paradox. Beverly's philosophy of to thine own self be true has gotten her into trouble. And right on the heels of that, you invited her into getting into trouble with you. What was that about?
There's this idea of good trouble. I think a lot of folks have been talking about that in the last few years, largely in tribute to the late, great John Lewis. So I appreciate that. The thing about good trouble, though, is it's almost always storied as bad trouble at the time, right? Only in retrospect, often years later, by the way, it gets storied then as good trouble. It morphs, right? It changes over time. So to me, the idea of getting into trouble at its best means at the very beginning, we talked about rebellion, Larry. I mean, I think it's an act of rebellion. I think it resists dominant ways of doing things, resists dominant power structures, perhaps, dominant ideas about who people can be and who they can't be. And, look, sometimes dominant ways of being and dominant stories serve people. I'm certainly not going to invite people out of stories that are serving them, but often they don't. And so people I've worked with in my practice over the years have taught me that it can have immense therapeutic value, to get into some trouble together. And I'm not going to call it good trouble or bad trouble. I'm not going to judge it. We'll just call it trouble. And I guess the viewer can decide on that.
Do you have a sense of where this is going, Travis?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm starting to. I have a better sense of a few of Beverly's strengths of moral character and, what makes her who she is. And I'm starting to get a sense of those, just to be clear. And along with that, I've been able to hear some stories that continue to inform this sense of who she is. And those are two different things, right? Getting the strengths of moral character alone, those aren't located in stories. So I want to understand what those strengths of moral character are and then elicit some stories. And I found that these understandings often become invaluable as people respond to what they're up against in their lives. And, also the act of just telling these stories can not only be therapeutic, but it can help reinforce who they believe themselves to be.
Why not address Beverly's credo of to thine own self be true, which has seemingly isolated and even marginalized her at times?
Yeah, that's an interesting interpretation, Larry. I'm not sure if it does or if it doesn't at this juncture, to be honest. But I'd be curious to ask her that question. rather than make that determination for myself. And I would love to continue to develop the story arc of to thine own self be true. I mean, boy, at least for me, when I heard that, I lit up. I'm sure I might have even looked that way on the screen, but I know internally I lit up. And I suspect, like most life credos, it's complicated, right? But such are good stories.